the sacrifice. Marcus Chen had seen many strange things during his 15 years as a deep space surveyor, but nothing prepared him for the sight before him. The alien world's purple sky stretched endlessly above crystalline forests that sang in harmonious frequencies whenever the wind touched their branches. He had been mapping this sector for 3 weeks when his scanners detected an unusual energy signature coming from a valley below. The crash site told a grim story. Twisted metal debris scattered across the lavender grass, still smoking from atmospheric entry. The ship's design was unlike anything in the galactic database. Organic curves blended with technology that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. As Marcus approached the wreckage, his universal translator crackled with weak signals. "Help! Please! She's hurt!" Following the voice, Marcus found them huddled beneath a section of hull that had formed a makeshift shelter. The adult alien was clearly dying, her silver blood pooling beneath wounds that no medical kit could heal. But it was the small figure beside her that made Marcus's heart clench. The child couldn't have been more than 6 years old by human standards, though her species was clearly different. Her skin held a faint luminescent quality, shifting between pale blue and silver like moonlight on water. Large violet eyes, filled with tears, looked up at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. When she saw Marcus, she instinctively moved to shield the dying adult with her tiny body. "Don't be afraid," Marcus said softly, his translator working to convert his words into their language. "I'm here to help." The adult alien, who Marcus realized must be the child's mother, struggled to speak. Her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, beautiful even in her pain. "Stranger, my daughter. Lyrian Empire hunts us. They come, please." Marcus knelt beside them, scanning the area with his equipment. His readings showed several ships approaching fast, military vessels by their energy signatures. The woman continued speaking, each word clearly causing her immense pain. "She is the last of our bloodline, sacred to my people, the Empire. They destroyed our world to claim her power. She must live." The child, whose name Marcus learned was Zara, spoke for the first time. Her voice was small, but clear. "Mama, I'm scared. The bad people are coming again." Marcus felt his protective instincts surge. He had lost his own daughter years ago in a transport accident, and something about this scene cut straight to his heart. "How long until they arrive?" he asked, checking his scanners. 20 minutes. "Maybe less," the mother whispered. "They have poison arrows, ancient weapons of my people turned against us. One scratch and—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Marcus understood. The Lyrian Empire was known throughout the galaxy for their cruelty, but using a species' own sacred weapons against them was barbaric even by their standards. He looked at his small ship, then at the approaching signatures on his scanner. 3 warships against his unarmed survey vessel. There was no way to outrun them with the child aboard. "There might be a way," he said slowly, formulating a desperate plan. "My ship has a medical pod with deep sleep protocols. If I put Zara inside and set it for extended hibernation, she could survive for decades, maybe longer." The mother's eyes widened with hope and terror. "But the poison arrows, if they hit the pod—" "They won't," Marcus said firmly. "I'll make sure of that." As the alien ships drew closer, Marcus worked frantically to prepare his ship's medical bay. The hibernation pod was designed for human physiology, but he could modify it. It would be risky, but it was their only chance. Zara's mother used her last strength to hold her daughter close. She spoke rapidly in their native language, words that Marcus's translator couldn't fully capture but understood were final instructions, promises, and expressions of love. She pressed a small pendant into the child's hands, a crystalline star that pulsed with inner light. "This will help you remember who you are," she whispered. And when you wake up, look for the kind human who saved you. He will be your guardian until you are ready." Marcus gently lifted Zara and carried her to the medical bay. The child was brave, but he could see the fear in her violet eyes. As he prepared the hibernation sequence, she grabbed his hand. "Will you stay with me?" she asked. "I'll be right here when you wake up," Marcus promised, not knowing if he could keep that promise, but meaning it with every fiber of his being. The first Lyrian ship broke atmosphere just as Marcus sealed Zara in the hibernation pod. He watched her peaceful face through the transparent cover, then activated the deep sleep sequence. The pod hummed to life, surrounding her in a protective field that would keep her safe for as long as necessary. Marcus ran to his ship's bridge as the Lyrian vessels landed nearby. Through his view screen, he watched as armored figures emerged, their faces hidden behind masks that resembled skulls. They carried weapons that looked like ornate crossbows, but Marcus knew these were the poison arrows the mother had spoken of, weapons that could kill with the slightest scratch. The lead Lyrian warrior approached Marcus's ship and activated a communication link. His voice was cold and mechanical through the translator. "Human, we detected life signs in this area. Hand over the fugitive child, and you will be permitted to leave unharmed." Marcus stood in his ship's airlock, blocking their view of the medical bay. "There's no child here. Just me and the crash site you can see for yourselves." The Lyrian commander gestured to his soldiers, who began scanning the area. Marcus knew it was only a matter of time before they detected the hibernation pod's energy signature, even though he had tried to mask it. "Interesting," the commander said, studying his scanner. "There appears to be a significant power source aboard your vessel. Perhaps you would not mind if we conducted a search." Marcus stepped fully outside his ship, closing the airlock behind him. "Sorry, but that's not going to happen. This is a registered survey vessel under Earth Confederation protection." The commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The Earth Confederation is very far away, human, and we have special permission to pursue fugitives wherever they run." As the soldiers raised their poison arrow weapons, Marcus realized this was the moment of truth. He could try to negotiate, maybe buy more time, but he knew these beings had no intention of letting him live. They would search his ship, find Zara, and complete whatever dark purpose had driven them to destroy her world. "You know what?" Marcus said, reaching slowly for something on his belt. "I think I might have seen a child around here. Small, glowing skin, purple eyes. Is that who you're looking for?" The commander's attention focused entirely on Marcus. "Where?" Marcus smiled grimly. "She went that way," he said, pointing toward the crystal forests. "But here's the thing, you're not getting her." In one swift motion, Marcus activated his ship's defensive systems and dove for cover behind a piece of wreckage. Energy blasts and poison arrows filled the air where he had been standing seconds before. His ship's automated turrets emerged and began returning fire, forcing the Lyrians to seek their own cover. But Marcus knew this was a delaying action at best. His survey ship's weapons were designed to ward off space debris and small meteors, not military assault. The Lyrians would overwhelm his defenses soon enough. As he crouched behind the twisted metal, Marcus felt something sharp pierce his shoulder. Looking down, he saw the ornate shaft of a poison arrow protruding from his flesh. The commander had flanked him during the firefight. "A valiant effort, human," the Lyrian said, approaching with his weapon trained on Marcus. "But now you will tell us where the child is before the poison stops your heart." Marcus felt the alien toxin spreading through his bloodstream like liquid fire. His vision began to blur, and his limbs grew heavy. But instead of fear, he felt a strange sense of peace. Zara was safe in the hibernation pod, protected by his ship's shielding and the modifications he had made to mask her life signs. "The child," Marcus gasped, drawing the commander closer. "She's..." With his last conscious act, Marcus triggered his ship's emergency lockdown protocol. Steel blast doors slammed shut over every entrance, and the ship's AI activated quarantine procedures that would keep it sealed for exactly 50 years, the maximum setting he could enter before the poison claimed him. The commander shouted in rage, firing more arrows into Marcus's body, but it was too late. The human had made his choice, and now the ship was an impenetrable fortress. As darkness claimed Marcus Chen, his last thought was of Zara's violet eyes and the promise he had made. He would be there when she woke up, even if it killed him. The Lyrian commander stood over the human's body, studying the sealed ship with growing frustration. His scanners detected the life form inside, but the vessel's defenses were unlike anything he had encountered. Every attempt to breach the hull met with failure. "Commander," one of his soldiers reported, "the ship's quantum shielding is too advanced. It would take a fleet to break through, and by then, the child's hibernation cycle could be complete," the commander finished. "How long?" "Unknown, sir. Humans use various deep sleep protocols. Could be months. Could be decades." The commander made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "We maintain surveillance. Post a beacon. When that ship opens, we will be notified immediately." As the Lyrian ships departed, leaving monitoring equipment hidden among the crystal forests, Marcus's body lay still beside his sealed vessel. But unknown to the aliens, the poison that should have killed him had instead triggered an unexpected reaction with the ship's experimental medical nanites in his bloodstream. While Zara slept peacefully in her hibernation pod, Marcus's body began a slow, impossible process of healing and preservation. The nanites, designed to repair cellular damage during long space voyages, worked to counteract the alien poison. They couldn't purge it completely, but they could keep him in a state of suspended animation, maintaining life at the cellular level while his consciousness drifted in the space between life and death. 50 years would pass before either of them opened their eyes again. And when they did, the galaxy would be a very different place. The awakening. The first sensation Marcus experienced was warmth, not the burning fire of alien poison that had consumed him 50 years ago, but a gentle, healing warmth that seemed to emanate from everywhere around him. His eyes fluttered open to see a purple sky filled with unfamiliar constellations, and for a moment he wondered if he was dreaming. Memory flooded back in waves: the crash, the child, the Lyrian arrows. He tried to sit up and gasped as his body protested with aches that felt both ancient and fresh. Looking down at himself, Marcus was amazed to discover that while his clothes had long since deteriorated, his body appeared remarkably preserved. The wound where the poison arrow had struck was now just a faint scar. "The nanites," he whispered, remembering the experimental medical technology his ship had been testing. Somehow, they had kept him alive all this time. Marcus struggled to his feet and looked around the crash site. The alien ship's wreckage had been overgrown by crystalline vines that sparkled in the sunlight. His own vessel still stood sealed, its hull gleaming as if it had been polished yesterday. The emergency lockdown had protected it from the elements and the passage of time. As he approached his ship, memories of that desperate day came rushing back. Zara, the child he had promised to protect. His hands shook as he activated the release sequence for the emergency lockdown. 50 years had passed. What had happened to her? Was she even still alive? The blast doors retracted with a soft hiss, and Marcus hurried to the medical bay. The hibernation pod sat exactly where he had left it, its status lights showing green. His heart pounded as he initiated the awakening sequence, watching as the transparent cover slowly lifted to reveal a figure inside. But this was not the frightened 6-year-old he remembered. The being who sat up in the hibernation pod was clearly Zara, but transformed. She had grown into a young woman, though her alien physiology made it difficult to determine her exact age. Her luminescent skin now held a more pronounced silver quality, and her violet eyes seemed to hold depths of knowledge that hadn't been there before. The small pendant her mother had given her still hung around her neck, pulsing with a stronger light than before. When her gaze met Marcus's, recognition dawned immediately. She stepped out of the pod with grace that spoke of hidden strength, and to Marcus's shock, she dropped to one knee before him. "My guardian," she said in perfect English, though he could hear the musical quality of her native language underneath. "You kept your promise. You were here when I awakened." "Zara," Marcus breathed, reaching out to help her stand. "You don't need to kneel. I'm just glad you're safe." She allowed him to help her up, but her expression remained formal, reverent. "Much has changed in the time we slept," she said. "I experienced visions during hibernation, dreams that were more than dreams. My people's history, their knowledge, their hopes for the future. All of it flowed into me while I slept." Marcus frowned. "What kind of visions?" Zara walked to the ship's viewport and looked out at the crystal forests. "The Lyrian Empire fell 20 years ago. My people were not the only ones they hunted. Eventually, their cruelty united dozens of species against them. But in the chaos that followed their defeat, something unexpected happened." She turned back to Marcus, and he could see power radiating from her like heat from a star. "The scattered survivors of my people began having dreams of me, sleeping but alive. They called me the last princess, the one prophesied to unite the remnants of our civilization. Over the decades, they came here. They've been waiting." "Waiting?" Marcus asked, though he was beginning to understand. "For me to wake up. For you to wake up. The human who sacrificed himself for one of us." Zara's voice held a note of awe. "They've built a settlement beyond these forests. Not just my people, but others too. Refugees from the wars, explorers, traders. They call it Haven's Rest, and they've been preparing for this day." Marcus felt overwhelmed. "I was just trying to save a child. I didn't mean to start anything." "But you did," Zara said softly. "When word spread through the galaxy that a human had willingly taken poison arrows to protect an alien child, it changed how many species viewed your people. Earth's reputation grew. Humanity became known not just for your bravery in battle, but for your willingness to sacrifice for others." She gestured toward the viewport, where Marcus could now see movement in the distant tree line. Figures were emerging from the crystal forests, dozens of them, representing multiple species he recognized and some he didn't. "They've been monitoring this site for decades," Zara explained. "When your ship's lockdown ended, it sent a signal. They know we're awake." Marcus watched the approaching crowd with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. "What do they want?" "To see the guardian who saved their princess," Zara replied. "To witness the beginning of something new." As the first of the aliens reached the crash site, Marcus was struck by their diversity. He saw the ethereal, glowing forms of Zara's people, but also the crystalline structure of Nexari traders, the flowing liquid forms of Hydros scouts, and even a few humans among them. They approached with reverence, many dropping to one knee as they had seen Zara do. An elderly alien who seemed to be of Zara's species stepped forward. His skin held the deep silver of advanced age, and the pendant around his neck marked him as some kind of leader or priest. "Princess Zara," he said in the musical language of her people, "and Marcus Chen, the guardian of the last light. We have waited so long for this day." Marcus felt uncomfortable with the title, but Zara placed a gentle hand on his arm. "They need symbols," she whispered. "Hope made manifest. You became that when you chose to save me." The elderly alien continued speaking. "I am Keeper Thane, last of the Royal Council. In the years since the Empire's fall, we have prepared for your return. The galaxy has changed, Princess. Wars have ended, new alliances have formed, but chaos still reigns in many sectors. Your people need leadership. The galaxy needs the wisdom of the old ways combined with the courage of the new. Marcus looked at Zara, seeing the weight of expectation settling on her shoulders. She was no longer the frightened child he had saved, but he could still see traces of that vulnerability in her eyes. "What are you asking of her?" he said protectively. Keeper Thane's ancient eyes fixed on Marcus with approval. "Still protecting her, even now. This is why the legends speak of you as the Eternal Guardian." He turned back to Zara. "We ask nothing she is not ready to give. But the time for hiding is over, Princess. Your people are scattered across 100 worlds. They need you to unite them, to lead them into a new age." Zara was quiet for a long moment, her hand still resting on the pendant her mother had given her. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone much older. "I will do what is necessary for my people, but not alone." She looked at Marcus. "The Guardian stays with me. He has already sacrificed more than any could ask. If he chooses to remain, he will stand as my advisor, my protector, my friend." Marcus felt the weight of dozens of alien gazes upon him. The smart choice would be to return to Earth, to report what had happened and resume his old life. But looking at Zara, seeing the young woman who had grown from the child he had saved, he knew he could never abandon her. "I gave you a promise 50 years ago," he said. "I don't break my promises." A cheer went up from the assembled aliens, a sound like wind chimes and crystal bells mixed with voices from a dozen different species. Keeper Thane smiled, an expression that transformed his ancient features. "Then let us return to Haven's Rest," he said. "There is much to show you both, and preparations to make. The galaxy may be at peace for now, but storms are gathering on the horizon. New threats arise, and old enemies plan their return." As they began the journey through the crystal forests toward the hidden settlement, Marcus walked beside Zara, still trying to process everything that had happened. The trees around them resonated with harmonious frequencies, as if celebrating their passage. "Are you ready for this?" he asked quietly. Zara looked thoughtful. "I've had 50 years of dreams to prepare me. I've lived through my people's history, learned their secrets, understood their hopes. But ready?" She smiled, and for a moment, he saw the 6-year-old child again. "I suppose we'll find out together." Haven's Rest proved to be far more than the simple settlement Marcus had expected. Built into a natural amphitheater among the crystal cliffs, the city was a marvel of organic architecture that seemed to grow from the living rock itself. Spires of cultivated crystal reached toward the purple sky, while platforms of woven metal provided living spaces for the diverse population. As they entered the city, Marcus was amazed by what he saw. This wasn't just a refugee camp or temporary settlement. It was a thriving community that had been built with permanence in mind. Gardens of alien plants provided both beauty and sustenance, while workshops and laboratories showed that serious work was being done here. "We've spent decades preparing," Keeper Thane explained, leading them through streets filled with beings from across the galaxy. "Not just waiting for your return, but building something worthy of it. We've gathered the best minds, the most skilled artisans, the wisest leaders, all waiting for the princess to claim her throne." At the heart of the city stood a structure that took Marcus's breath away. It was neither palace nor temple, but something that combined elements of both. Crystalline walls rose in elegant spirals around a central tower that seemed to pulse with the same inner light as Zara's pendant. This was clearly meant to be her seat of power. "It's beautiful," Zara said softly. "But it's not a throne I see here. It's a responsibility." "The greatest leaders are those who understand the weight of command," Keeper Thane replied. "Come, there are others you must meet, representatives from the major powers, ambassadors from Earth's Confederation, traders and explorers who have come to witness this moment. As they climbed the steps to the great hall within the Crystal Palace, Marcus felt history shifting around them. Whatever happened next, he knew the galaxy would never be the same. The frightened child he had saved 50 years ago was about to become a queen, and somehow he had been chosen to stand at her side through whatever challenges lay ahead. The doors to the hall opened before them, revealing a chamber filled with beings from across known space. At the far end, a throne of living crystal waited, not ornate or intimidating, but welcoming, a symbol of hope rather than dominance. Zara paused at the threshold, her hand finding Marcus's for just a moment. "Together?" she whispered. "Together," he confirmed. And with that, they stepped forward into their new destiny, as the galaxy watched and waited to see what would come next. The crown 3 months had passed since Zara's awakening, and Marcus was still adjusting to his new role as advisor to an alien queen. The Crystal Palace had become a hub of galactic diplomacy, with representatives from dozens of worlds coming to pay their respects to the last princess and seek her guidance in the uncertain times that had followed the Lyrian Empire's fall. Marcus stood on his private balcony overlooking Haven's Rest, watching the morning light dance through the crystal spires. The city had grown substantially since their arrival, with new districts being built to accommodate the steady stream of pilgrims, diplomats, and refugees who came seeking Zara's wisdom. "The Guardian contemplates the horizon again," a familiar voice said behind him. Marcus turned to see Zara approaching, dressed in the flowing robes of her office. The pendant her mother had given her now served as the centerpiece of a crown of living crystal that had grown around it, a symbol of power that had literally shaped itself to her will. Despite her regal bearing, Marcus could still see traces of the young woman who had emerged from hibernation, uncertain about her destiny. "Just thinking about how much has changed," he said. 3 months ago, I was a deep space surveyor. Now I'm apparently the royal guardian to the most influential leader in this sector." Zara joined him at the balcony railing, her luminescent skin catching the morning light. "Are you regretting your choice to stay?" Marcus considered the question seriously. Life in the palace was comfortable but complex. Every day brought new challenges, trade disputes to mediate, territorial conflicts to resolve, scientific discoveries to evaluate. Zara had proven to be a gifted leader, but she often sought his perspective on matters, claiming that his human viewpoint helped her see problems from new angles. "No regrets," he said finally, "though I have to admit, I never expected to be advising alien royalty on interstellar mining rights." Zara laughed, the sound like silver bells. That particular dispute was enlightening. When the Terran delegation suggested resolving it with combat, I thought Ambassador Vex might explode. "Humans do have a reputation for direct solutions," Marcus admitted. "Sometimes too direct." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Sarah Cross, the Earth Confederation's liaison to Zara's court. The woman was a career diplomat, but Marcus could see the strain of recent events in her expression. "Your Majesty, Guardian," she said with a formal bow. "I apologize for interrupting, but we've received urgent communications from the Outer Rim territories. The situation has escalated." Zara's expression immediately grew serious. "The Void Harbingers?" Marcus had been hearing whispers about this mysterious faction for weeks. They had emerged from the galactic dark zones beyond mapped space, claiming to represent an alliance of species that had been displaced by the old galactic powers. Their demands were simple: complete restructuring of galactic civilization to give voice to the forgotten and oppressed. Their methods, however, were anything but simple. "They've taken the mining station at Kepler's Edge," Captain Cross reported. 1,200 workers held hostage. "They're demanding an audience with you, Your Majesty." They claim you're the only leader they'll recognize as legitimate. Because I was also displaced, Zara said quietly. They see me as one of them, a refugee who rose to power. Marcus frowned. It could be a trap. The Harbingers haven't shown much interest in diplomacy so far. Perhaps, Zara agreed, but those 1,200 workers are innocent. And if there's a chance for peaceful resolution, she turned to Captain Cross. Prepare my ship. We leave within the hour. Your Majesty, the captain protested, the Confederation cannot guarantee your safety. The Harbingers have technology we don't understand. Weapons that seem to bend space itself. Then it's good that I'm not going alone, Zara said, glancing at Marcus. The Guardian has faced impossible odds before. An hour later, Marcus found himself aboard Zara's flagship, the Crystal Dawn, as they made the jump to hyperspace. The ship was a marvel of hybrid technology, human engineering combined with the organic methods of Zara's people. The result was a vessel that seemed almost alive, responding to its crew's intentions as much as their commands. The journey to Kepler's Edge took 2 days, giving Marcus time to study what little intelligence they had on the Void Harbingers. The faction had appeared seemingly from nowhere 6 months ago, striking at isolated outposts and stations with surgical precision. They never harmed civilians unless attacked first, but their demands grew bolder with each raid. They're not random terrorists, Marcus observed, reviewing the data in his quarters. There's a pattern here. They're targeting infrastructure that supports the current galactic order, trade hubs, communication relays, mining operations that feed the core worlds. Zara, who had been studying the same reports, nodded thoughtfully. They want to force a conversation that the established powers have been avoiding. The question is whether they'll listen to reason or if they've moved beyond diplomacy. When they dropped out of hyperspace at Kepler's Edge, the answer became immediately apparent. The mining station hung in space like a crystalline web, its normal operations clearly suspended. But surrounding it were ships unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Vessels that seemed to be built from shadow itself, their surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Incoming transmission, reported the communications officer. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a figure that made Marcus's breath catch. The being was clearly humanoid, but wrong in subtle ways that suggested extensive genetic modification. Her skin held a metallic sheen, and her eyes were solid black orbs that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Princess Zara of the Silver Throne, the figure said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the ship's hull vibrate. I am Ninth, speaker for the Void Harbingers. You honor us with your presence. I honor the lives of innocent workers, Zara replied carefully. I've come to listen to your concerns and seek peaceful resolution. Nith's expression was unreadable. You speak of peace while traveling with the weapons of the old order. Her gaze fixed on something off-screen. Confederation vessels hold position beyond scanner range. Do you think we are blind? Marcus stepped forward. The Confederation ships are here for our protection, nothing more. If you wanted a fight, you could have attacked the moment we arrived. Ah, Nith said, her black eyes focusing on Marcus with unsettling intensity. The Guardian speaks, the human who swallowed poison for an alien child. Your legend has reached even our distant territories. Then you know I'm not here to make war, Marcus said firmly. I'm here to help find a solution that doesn't involve innocent people getting hurt. Nith was silent for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. You may board our flagship, but only the princess and her guardian. Any others, and we will consider it an act of aggression. 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself in the airlock of the most alien vessel he had ever seen. The Harbinger ship's interior was a maze of organic corridors that seemed to pulse with their own life. The walls were covered in a substance that looked like living shadow, and the air itself seemed thick with whispered voices just beyond the range of hearing. They were escorted to what could only be called a throne room, though it bore no resemblance to any earthly concept of royal chambers. The space was vast and circular, with no apparent ceiling, just darkness that stretched upward into infinity. At the center sat Neith on a throne carved from what looked like crystallized void. "Welcome to the eternal night," she said as they approached. "This ship has sailed between stars for 3,000 years, carrying the survivors of worlds that fell to make others prosperous." Marcus felt a chill as the implications became clear. "You're refugees. All of you." "Refugees, exiles, the forgotten and abandoned," Nith confirmed. "When the great powers carved up the galaxy, entire civilizations were displaced to make room for their expansion. We were told it was necessary for the greater good. We were promised new homes, compensation, justice. We received none of it." Zara stepped forward, her own experiences of loss evident in her expression. "I understand your pain. My own people were hunted to near extinction, but hostage-taking won't solve the injustices of the past." "No," Nith agreed, "but it will force those injustices into the light. For too long, the core worlds have prospered, while the displaced suffered in silence. That time is ending." "What do you want?" Marcus asked directly. Nith rose from her throne and began walking around them in a slow circle. "We want seats at the table, representation in galactic councils, recognition that our needs matter as much as any core world's profits. The current system treats refugees and displaced peoples as inconveniences to be managed, not beings with rights." "That can be arranged," Zara said carefully. "The Galactic Council has provisions for admitting new member states." "Under current leadership? Leaders who see us as barbaric terrorists?" Nith laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "No, Princess. The system cannot be reformed. It must be replaced. And you, the last princess who rose from refugees to royalty, will lead that replacement." Marcus felt the trap closing. "You want her to legitimize a rebellion." "I want her to lead it," Nith corrected. "Think of it. The refugee princess and the displaced nations, united against the powers that abandoned them. Your story gives our cause a face the galaxy can't ignore." Zara was quiet for a long moment, considering the offer. Marcus could see the conflict in her eyes, the desire to help her fellow refugees, warring with the knowledge of what such a path would cost. "And if I refuse?" Zara asked finally. Nith's expression hardened. "Then you prove that power corrupts even the most well-intentioned. The mining station will be destroyed as an example, and we will continue our campaign until someone with courage steps forward. Or until you're all killed," Marcus pointed out. "The core worlds won't tolerate open rebellion for long." "Then many will die," Nith said simply. "But their sacrifice will inspire others. Change always requires blood, Guardian." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. "That's where you're wrong. Real change comes from understanding, cooperation, building bridges instead of burning them." "Spoken like someone who has never been truly powerless," Nith snapped. "You humans with your optimism and your heroes, you think every problem can be solved with noble speeches and good intentions." "Maybe not every problem," Marcus admitted, "but this one can be. Zara, you don't have to choose between helping refugees and preserving peace. There's another way." Zara looked at him with hope in her violet eyes. "What are you thinking?" Marcus turned to address Nith directly. "You want representation? Fine. But earning it through hostage-taking only proves your enemy's point that you're too dangerous to trust. Instead, let Princess Zara sponsor your admission to the Galactic Council. Let her use her influence to create a new bureau specifically for refugee rights and displaced persons." "And what guarantee do we have that these promises won't be empty words?" Nith demanded. "Because I'll personally oversee the process," Marcus said firmly, "and because Zara will make it her primary mission as queen." not as a concession to terrorists, but as a moral imperative for a leader who understands displacement herself. Nith studied them both for a long moment, her black eyes unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "The Guardian offers hope where we had found none. Very well, Princess Zara of the Silver Throne. Prove that the galaxy can change without burning. Show us that justice can be achieved through law rather than war. But know this, if you fail, if your promises prove as empty as those before them, the Void Harbingers will remember, and we will not be so patient again." "Understood," Zara said formally. "The hostages?" "Will be released immediately, unharmed." Nath gestured, and her crew began moving to comply. "Consider it a gesture of good faith." As they prepared to return to their ship, Nith called out once more. "Guardian, your legend speaks of sacrifice for the innocent. Today you have shown that the legend is true. But remember, legends often end in tragedy. Be careful that your nobility does not become your downfall." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I'd rather risk tragedy than guarantee it." Back aboard the Crystal Dawn, as they watched the mining station's workers being safely evacuated, Zara turned to Marcus with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You've committed us to a massive undertaking," she said. "Restructuring galactic refugee policy, creating new institutions, convincing the core worlds to accept displaced peoples as equals. It could take decades." "Then we'd better get started," Marcus replied. "Besides, you said it yourself when you took the crown. You're not just a queen, you're a symbol of hope. Today, we gave that hope substance." Zara smiled, the expression transforming her regal features. "When I was 6 years old, a human stranger risked everything to save me. 50 years later, he's still taking impossible risks to help people he's never met. I'm beginning to think that's just who you are, Marcus Chen." "Maybe," Marcus said, looking out at the stars where former enemies were now working together to ensure everyone's safety. "But if that's who I am, then I can't think of a better place to be than standing beside someone who's willing to change the galaxy one life at a time." As the Crystal Dawn turned toward home, carrying the first refugees who would benefit from Zara's new policies, Marcus felt a sense of completion. He had made a promise to a frightened child 50 years ago. Today, that child, now a queen, was making promises of her own to the entire galaxy. And for the first time since waking from his long sleep, Marcus was certain they would both keep their word.